Unit 27. Nano super de null / null arm surg strat later tom iatr. Nano comes from the Greek nanos, meaning dwarf. For a prefix meaning small, English got by for centuries with the Greek micro dash, and later mini came to be used widely as well. But only recently, as a result of advances in scientific knowledge and technology, has there been a need for a prefix meaning extremely small, a need that's been filled by nano dash, which today is being attached to all kinds of words, sometimes not very seriously, nanoskirt, nanobrained, etc. Nanotechnology, the science of manipulating materials on an atomic or molecular scale, especially to build microscopic devices such as robots. Nanotechnology is now seen as contributing to numerous environmental solutions, from cleaning up hazardous waste sites to producing strong but lightweight materials for auto bodies. Nanotechnology, or nanotech for short, deals with matter at a level that most of us find hard to imagine, since it involves objects with dimensions of 100 billionths of a meter, 1/800th of the thickness of a human hair, or less. The chemical and physical properties of materials often change greatly at this scale. Nanotechnology is already being used in automobile tires, landmine detectors, and computer disk drives. Nanomedicine is a particularly exciting field. Imagine particles the size of a blood cell that could be released into the bloodstream to form into tiny robots and attack cancer cells, or machines the size of a molecule that could actually repair the damaged interiors of individual cells. Nanosecond 1 billionth of a second. When he finally asked if she would marry him, it took her about a nanosecond to say yes. The non-serious use of nanosecond is probably much more common than the proper technical use. In measurement terms such as nanosecond, nanogram, and nanometer, nano means billionth. In other kinds of words, its meaning isn't quite so precise. In computers, the speed of reading and writing to random access memory, RAM, is measured in nanoseconds. By comparison, the speed of reading or writing to a hard drive or a CD-ROM player, or for information to travel over the internet, is measured in milliseconds, thousandths of a second, which are a million times longer than nanoseconds. Nanostructure and arrangement, structure, or part of something of molecular dimensions. In the 1990s, the physics department, which had been doing extensive research on microstructures, began to get deeply involved in nanostructures, including nanofoam, nanoflakes, and nanofibers. Two important types of nanostructure are nanocrystals, tiny crystals, often of semiconducting material, and nanotubes, tiny tubes, usually of pure carbon. Nanocrystals made from semiconductors change color depending on their size, and are being used for such tasks as detecting viruses in living cells. Nanotubes can conduct enormous amounts of electrical current, far more than metal wires. They are the basic material of tiny paper batteries, which can be rolled, folded, or cut while still producing power. Nanotubes are also now being used in materials for lightweight tennis rackets and golf clubs, and may soon enable the manufacture of TV screens no thicker than a film. Nanoparticle, a tiny particle whose size is measured in billionths of a meter. Nanoparticles of iron are being used to clean up soil pollution, helping break down molecules of dangerous substances into simple compounds. Nanoparticles of a material usually have very different qualities from those that the material has at its ordinary scale, which is one reason why there's such excitement about the possibilities for how they might be used in future technologies. Many uses have already been developed. Aluminum nanoparticles added to rocket fuel can make the fuel burn twice as fast and release much more energy. Silicon nanoparticles are increasing the energy efficiency of solar cells by allowing the energy from ultraviolet light to be captured for the first time. Other nanoparticles are now helping prevent rust in metals, produce stronger batteries, enhance the diagnosis of cancer, and improve the filtering of water, and the number of other applications is growing fast. Super, a Latin prefix meaning over, higher, more than, has become one of the most familiar prefixes in English, one of those prefixes that we use to create new words all the time: supermodel, superpowerful, superjock, supersize, supersweet, the list goes on and on. This all seems to have started in 1903 when the playwright G. B. Shaw translated the German word Übermensch, Nietzsche's famous term for the person who rises to heroic heights through discipline and creative power, in the title of his play Man and Superman. The comic book character with the same name wouldn't make his appearance for another 30 years. Superfluous, beyond what is needed, extra. My freshman comp professor removes all superfluous words from our essays, and usually ends up shortening mine by about 40%. Since the Latin fluere means to flow, CFLU, you can think of superfluous as describing a river with so much water that it's overflowing its banks. The word is used in all kinds of contexts. Superfluous characters in computer code may keep it from working. Most of the buttons on a remote control may strike us as superfluous, since we never use them. When a situation speaks for itself, any comment may be superfluous. And whenever you yourself are feeling superfluous, as in a two's company, three's a crowd situation, it's probably time to leave. Insuperable, incapable of being solved or overcome. In learning to speak again after suffering a massive stroke, he had overcome what seemed like insuperable odds. From its roots, the literal meaning of insuperable would be something like ungetoverable. Insurmountable is a fairly exact synonym. Insuperable is used to describe obstacles, difficulties, barriers, obstructions, problems, and objections. Americans love stories of people who succeed in spite of terrible handicaps, whether as a result of physical limitations, prejudice, poverty, or lack of opportunity. Such rugged spirits may be called indomitable, incapable of being subdued. Supersede, to take the place of, to replace with something newer or more useful. The notorious decision in the Dred Scott case was superseded by the 14th Amendment to the Constitution, which stated that anyone born in the U.S. had all the rights of a citizen. The Latin word superseder means sit on top of, which is one way of taking someone else's place. Your boss may send around a memo that supersedes the memo she sent the day before, the one with all the errors in it. Every time the first-class postage rate goes up, the new stamps supersede the old ones. In science, a new theory often supersedes an older one. For example, the theory that a characteristic you acquire during your lifetime can be passed on biologically to your children, called Lamarckism, was superseded by Darwin's theory of evolution. Watch out when spelling this word. Supersede is practically the only English word that ends in seed. Superlative, supreme, excellent. The new restaurant turned out to be an elegant place, and we all agreed that the food and wine were superlative. Superlative may sound high-flown when compared with a synonym like outstanding, but if your next paper comes back from your teacher with the comment superlative work at the top, you probably won't complain. Since superlative means best, greatest, it makes sense that superlative is also a term used in grammar for the highest degree of comparison. So for the adjective simple, for example, the comparative form is simpler and the superlative form is simplest, and for the adverb boldly, the comparative form is more boldly and the superlative is most boldly.